Oh, thank you all for tuning in to another edition of Outside the Shop with me, your host, Daryl D. Lane, where I get to talk about everything that I normally don't get to talk about on my regular sports podcast, Barbershop Sports Talk, which you can find on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, whatever you get your podcasting apps and platforms. You can check me out on there. The podcast that I released today, I had my friend on, Silas Garrison, and we talked a lot about the Buffalo Bills. We talked about the Buffalo Bills. Silas also went into every team in the AFC and the NFC respectively in terms of who he respects and who he doesn't respect, and I found that interesting as well. He sung Josh Allen's praises, he made fun and cackled at the New England Patriots, and at the end we got into a little bit of LeBron, Los Angeles Lakers talk. Also, we dived into Kawhi Leonard and Kevin Durant as well towards the end. So definitely check that podcast out. And like I said, you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, all your stuff. All your podcasting apps and platforms. It was a great conversation. And just to let everybody know, for the Friday podcast, I'm going to have Ben Karen on, host the Sports Weather podcast, for our predictions as we get into the last week of the NFL season and the college football semifinals, which are going on as well. So here's where I want to start. Happy birthday to LeBron James. He's turning 36. LeBron James, quite simply, is the greatest player I've ever seen. Now, I think Michael Jordan's better all time. I even think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is better all time. My favorite basketball player ever is Kobe Bryant. I like Kevin Durant as a basketball player more than LeBron. But since I've been watching basketball, which has been since like 2010, so maybe when I was like in 4th grade, since I've been watching basketball, decade plus around, LeBron has been the best player. From 2008 till now, LeBron has been the best player consistently. As I'm looking at some of his greatest moments, right? You have 25 points against the Detroit Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they go on to the finals and they lose to the Spurs. You have Game 6 versus the Boston Celtics in TD Garden. LeBron drops 45 and 15 to force a Game 7. The Heat beat the Celtics. They go on, beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA Finals. You have the 41-point game against the Golden State Warriors in 2016. For Game 5 when he had 41 points, him and Kyrie Irving, which would end up being the spark of that comeback and the whole Believeland thing, and Cleveland winning their first ever pro sports championship in about 100 years. You have other moments like the Game 7. He had 27 points in the Game 7 against the Golden State Warriors in 2016. He had the great block on Andre Iguodala. Like, LeBron has had so many fantastic moments in his career. He did it in Cleveland, he did it in Miami, he did it in Los Angeles, and he's done it different ways. He's been the high flyer in Cleveland the first time. Then he kind of went up to a more mature approach in Miami. And now he's kind of changed his game to being a point guard with the Los Angeles Lakers. And he's still great, still one of the best players in the NBA at year 17, 18, at 36 years old, which is astonishing. Astonishing. When we see athletes deteriorate, they get old, they get hurt, they lose love for the game, LeBron is still in the mix. And it's really crazy, right? 2011, Dallas Mavericks. He scored 8 points in the finals game. I think he averaged like 17, 7, 7 was like 47% from the field goal range. Wasn't the best performance ever, right? LeBron can do better than that. Good by normal standards, but LeBron can definitely do better. But he came back the next year in 2011. And that's when that 45 and 15 game in Boston happened. That's when he was on a revenge tour that whole year. And he got the job done against Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. LeBron James has been special. He has been a treasure to watch. He also kind of started the player empowerment era. When we see guys like a James Harden now who requests to trade Kawhi Leonard. Now, I'm not saying Kevin Durant, the Golden State Warriors forming. I'm not saying all this is good for the NBA, but LeBron James started it. He's been a trendsetter. So, happy birthday to LeBron James, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He's third on my list. He's the best player I've ever seen since I've been watching basketball. So, congrats to LeBron James. So, I want to go to this. Bills Mafia, the Buffalo Bills, will be allowed to have fans in the stadium for the playoffs. As I was just looking at this, they're going to be able to have just under 7,000 people. Everybody's going to be social distance. They're going to test everybody for COVID. This is going to be great. You know, my one dream, being alive and living in Buffalo, has been, could we have a home playoff game? Could we have a home playoff game in Orchard Park? Could we please? That's all I want for Christmas. That's all I want. And it's so crazy because COVID's happening, and maybe at a time where I didn't have to pay for a ticket, I could have just tailgated, and then I could have just gone to a bar, because you know there's going to be tons of people for the first Bills game around all these bars in Orchard Park and stuff like that, but you can't necessarily do that because of COVID. So that is the part that sucks. But I am thinking about this. I am thinking about potentially getting a ticket and going because I think it will be special. I mean, the first time in 20, 22 years. Like last time the Bills had a home playoff game, I don't think I was alive. I think that was the Music City Miracle, or maybe that was on the road. But that was that was a long, long time ago, folks. A long, long time ago, the Bills had a home playoff game, so it is going to be special. So next up, I want to get to this. So Kyler Murray is going to play against the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday for a do-or-die game to make the playoffs against the Rams. Kyler had a leg injury. It was kind of debatable whether he would try to play or not. He says he's going to gut it out. He's going to go. I think what's going to be really interesting to see is we all know what makes him super dynamic is his ability to run, his ability to extend plays. Is Cliff Kingsbury and this Arizona Cardinals offense, are they going to let Kyler run? Because this is do or die. Are they going to run him 20 times? Say, Kyler, take us home. Are they going to expose him to more hits? Is that going to happen? I think it's going to be really interesting because if people remember Robert Griffin III, RG3, his rookie year, he was kind of banged up. He was kind of hurt. They let him play anyway, and then he tore his ACL, and that kind of ended his career. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see during the game how they manage Kyler Murray because we know this is a do-or-die game. You need all your horses. You need Kyler to give you a little bit extra. Can he, and will they put him in those positions? That will be interesting. Also, Patrick Mahomes will not play against the Chargers to close out the year. He will be sitting on the bench, resting up for the playoffs. Chad Henne will get the start. Here's my thing, and I think the Bills should do this too, by the way, and even the Steelers a little bit, even though the Steelers are a different case because they went 10 straight games. There's nothing to me wrong with having your guys come out for a quarter. I just don't like the idea, particularly if you look at the Chiefs case. They're going to not play. If Patrick Mahomes doesn't play, he's going to miss 1 week. Then he's going to miss a second week because they're going to have a bye. The Chiefs are going to have a bye. That's going to be 2 full weeks off. We all know practice now in the NFL is not what it used to be. You can't necessarily get those live reps, those live hits in practice that you would in the game. So I just think that's a good thing to get that feeling. And people might say, whoa, injury. Well, to me, if you were going to get injured then, you could get injured 2 weeks from now. I just don't believe that if we didn't play him, this injury wouldn't have just eventually happened anyway. And I don't think you should play a game as inherently dangerous football anyway if you worry about, this guy can get injured. So I think Patrick Mahomes should at least play a little bit. But it will be also very interesting to see when the Chiefs come on and they have home field. They're the 1 seed for the divisional round. How does Patrick Mahomes, this Chiefs offense, look in the first quarter, the second quarter, the first half? That'll be interesting to see because of that layoff. Now, next up, we have Dwayne Haskins. He was released by the Washington football team. And apparently there are reports that several teams are interested. Now, this is a lie, and this is a good job by Dwayne Haskins' agent, because I'm pretty sure he leaked this to somebody, because let me tell you, nobody would want Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins has been awful. He's been awful his first 2 years in the league. And not only that, he was a captain, and he went to go to a strip club. He went to a strip club. Who wants Dwayne Haskins? Who are all these teams that are interested in Dwayne Haskins? I don't believe it. I don't buy it. So I think that is obviously probably his agent, trying to put out some good pub for his client, which his agent should do. I just don't buy that that's true. I think it's a lot more interested in Dwayne, wanting to be in a relationship with these teams than the other way around. Because it says something. When you're a first-round pick, 17th overall in the draft, I believe, and your team cuts you after 2 years. That's not good. That's not good. It's also not good when you have Alex Smith, who almost had his leg amputated, who's 37 years old. That guy, they want him to start over you. That's not good either. So now we're at to college football. Coastal Carolina's James E. Chadwell wins 2020 AP Coach of the Year award after an undefeated season for Coastal Carolina. They finished 12th in the country. Some other coaches that were up for consideration: Indiana's Tom Allen, whose team finished 11th in the country. They had a really good year. Also, Cincinnati's Luke Fickell, who the Bearcats finished 8th in the country. Now, for me, I would go with Luke Fickell out of Cincinnati. Here's some things that Cincinnati did. Not only did they go undefeated as well, they were the highest-ranked power Group of 5 team ever in the college football playoffs. Before that was UCF. Now they got as high as 6, I believe. As high as 6, so I think that's really special what they did with Cincinnati. I sure didn't see that coming. I think they started the season like 24th in the country, then rose all the way up to 8th. So I'm going to go with Luke Fickell, but no problem with what James E. Chadwell did with Coastal Carolina. They deserve it, and they were great. And that's all we have for this edition of Outside the Shop. Like I said, if you want to listen to the podcast I released with my guy Silas, we talked about the Buffalo Bills, their game against the New England Patriots on Monday Night Football. We talked about where the Patriots are heading to. I also got into a little bit of NBA at the end. He went on to some disrespect/respect rants on all these NFL teams. If you want to check that out, it's on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all your podcasting platforms. I'm going to post this episode of Outside the Shop on YouTube in just a bit, so definitely check out the YouTube channel and subscribe to that, please. Very much appreciated. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode. Thank you, and God bless.